This is the iPhone for Android users. It's the best Android phone for most people, and now that I've been using the Google Pixel 10 for about a week, there's a lot to like about it. A few big negatives you want to know, and a lot that I think is interesting and new about this phone. So I did a lot of camera testing. I'll show you throughout this video. I tested the improved speakers, as you'll see, and I tested a lot of the new features. So Google took an already pretty great phone, the Google Pixel 9, kept the price the same at $799, and made it a significantly better phone here in the 10. Just one example is the third camera on the back. As you'll see from my testing, this is a major improvement for this phone. And the periscope lens is almost always my favorite on pretty much any phone out there. So let's start off with the design. It looks familiar, but I would honestly be kind of disappointed if it looked different. The bar on the back has kind of become an iconic look for Pixel, and the best part is, check this out. You can lay it down, and unlike so many other phones, this has no wobbles. You can use your phone while it's laying flat on a desk, and it's a nice experience. And perhaps the biggest upgrade with this is on the back, the Qi 2 magnetic wireless charging. Basically, MagSafe, just Apple MagSafe. This is not Apple, so they call it Pixel Snap. And it's really a nice thing. So you can set it on a little stand, it can charge, and you can get cases that work with that as well. This comes in several different colors with a matte aluminum that's color matched to the back. Kind of a nice, just a really simple, minimal look that feels familiar, but at the same time is very Pixel. Now, the Pixel buttons, one kind of little complaint here is that they are always opposite Samsung. It throws me off every time I switch between them. The power button's on the top and the volume is below that. Personally, I wish that they were either on opposite sides like the iPhone, or it was at least the power button on the bottom. When I take my phone out and I want to open the camera, you have to reach up to double press that power button. It just maybe not my favorite way to have this set up. Another small downside, and there's only a couple with this phone, but one that I think is pretty significant is that there is no SIM tray anymore. So much like the iPhones, this is an eSIM only phone. Most carriers accept eSIMs. Almost every carrier does, by the way. But essentially, if you have a physical SIM and every time you upgrade a phone, you take your SIM out, you put it in the new phone, you can no longer do that. You have to go and get an eSIM through the app. For me, I find that a little bit frustrating as a reviewer. Like, I'm switching phones all the time. I love just swapping out my SIM. With this phone, I'm gonna have to switch back to eSIM. But instead, they gave us a little bit more room for a different speaker configuration on the bottom and an upgraded speaker on this phone. So let's do a quick little test of that.
So this is a speaker test, and I figured I would just use that new feature in the recording app where you just add music to whatever the recording is. So we're gonna add some music to this. That way it's definitely no copyright. And I don't know, let me know how this speaker sounds, or how this feature sounds as well.
Now, before I get into the camera test, I need to tell you why I'm even switching to the Pixel. I was using the Galaxy Z Fold 7. It was an amazing phone. I love the phone, but I used to be pretty anti-phone case. I liked not having a phone case on there. But believe it or not, I dropped it the day before my Pixel arrived, and I actually cracked or really shattered the camera on the back. It's the ultra wide, so it's technically a still usable phone, but for such an expensive device, I really should have taken the extra steps to buy a case before I shattered the ultra-wide lens on my phone. So I talked to a case company called Mouse. I've seen their cases. You might have seen their videos. They like throw their phones way up in the air and they come back like pretty much unscathed. Anyway, they sent me a case for my new Pixel right here, and they sponsored this portion of the video. So a little bit about their cases. They're not just some garbage drop shipping case company. Like, Mouse actually has a lot of engineers working on this, and the cases are extremely durable. This one also works with Qi 2 wireless charging. So again, that magnetic charging on here works with these cases, which, as you know, the Pixel does have. But even if you don't have a Pixel phone, their cases still do have the magnets in them. So it's a cool feature you can get on other Android phones as well. The buttons are really tactile. The case has a nice grip to it, and even has a lip around the camera on the back, so your camera should be protected as well as the rest of your phone. And Mouse has a large lineup of cases with varying levels of protection, so you can choose based on your habits, I guess, how you live your life. The super thin cases, for example, give you protection with an ultra slim profile that feels basically like you're not using a case. And the super thin case was designed specifically in collaboration with Google's designers to make sure the case complements the color, the form, and the function of the Pixel 10 devices. And the clarity cases, super premium, they never turn yellow, and they're great for putting a Polaroid of your girlfriend on the back or your dog or whatever. And they're the only ones, by the way, in the lineup that are offered in non-MagSafe version. So if you don't want to use the Pixel Snap and instead you just want to have an all clear back, like you don't want the magnets in the way, you could get that on the clear case, or you could get one that has the magnet. you can still see the back of your phone, looks awesome, and you still have pixel snap. This one right here is part of the Limitless lineup. These are absolutely no joke, and as a former mechanical engineer myself, I have to say I love what they did with the air shock on the inside, the added material in all the right places. Like, you know, they did so many drop tests with this. So thanks to Mouse for the case. I won't be making the mistake of not having a case on my phone anymore. And if you guys want to learn more about their cases, their designs, their prices, you can help out the channel by going through the link in the description down below or scanning the QR code. I know some of you guys watch on TV, so figured I'd put it right here so you could scan with your phone. So with that being said, let's get into the camera test. So taking a look at the camera, starting off with the primary rear lens, the key to this is of course going to be contrast. There's a ton of contrast in these pixel photos, but I have to say I really do like the colors of them. Here you can see a nice sky that does look very realistic, kind of golden hour. And if we go to other shots, again, a lot of contrast, but a very realistic color, in my opinion, a very pleasing photo. Zooming into 2x, you still get pretty good, basically optical zoom quality. Going into 5x, the periscope lens does a great job here. And you can even zoom into 20x. It does upscale it a little bit using super res zoom. I'll talk more about that in a second. But here again, 5x. Zooming into then 20x on this tree right here, you'll see it does a pretty decent job for being the max zoom of this camera. It's only a 10.8 megapixel sensor. The ultra-wide lens does a pretty decent job of having consistent colors with the primary rear lens. Here's the primary rear again. And with these shots, like, again, you're getting a ton of contrast on the leaves. You can see a little bit more than I would like, a little bit over sharpened on this example right here where the leaves are. But you're able to see even a little bird in the background. Here's the ultra-wide lens. We're going to zoom all the way in on a little bird down there just to see what the max zoom is really going to look like here. I think this is a good example of where you're going to see the stones are kind of like definitely upscaled, and that seems realistic, but the bird, you see, loses a lot of detail, which you would expect from something zoomed in that much. Regardless, still does a pretty decent job, but one thing with this camera is the ultra-wide lens just wasn't able to do any macro shots. I was trying tapping to focus, it just wasn't working for me. Front-facing cameras, selfie cameras, look pretty decent. The skin color looks accurate enough. I don't look overly red. The rear camera does a much better job, makes me look more alive. The front-facing camera sometimes has me a little bit washed out. Here's a portrait mode right here. It does a decent job, but again, the rear camera in portrait mode does a substantially better job. Has me perfectly in focus, even like every little hair sticking up on the top right. It's all captured, not blurred out. Pixel did a great job with this. And portrait mode now supports 50 megapixel photos. All right, so here's a video test with the Google Pixel 10. You can see the mower is definitely overexposed. I didn't tap to focus or anything. This is just how it looks out of the camera, but let's go a little closer, see if we get any kind of bokeh or nice natural blur. Just a little bit for sure. I actually just tapped to focus right there. We could go to ultra wide now. So if I go a little closer, let's see how the zoom is between lenses. So if I just slide out, the color looks a little different, but again, fairly smooth on that transition. And now let's zoom in. Let me actually walk backwards. I'm gonna zoom into 1x here, and now let's go all the way to that periscope lens. So as I zoom, I've never really been the biggest fan of pixel videos. They're always a little jerky to me, but if we get into 5x, there we go. Now it's actually a lot more stable, and it looks a lot better. I actually really like this lens. Still a little bit desaturated and a little bit bluer, honestly. And the max zoom, let's zoom in on the wheel, is 20x, as you can see right here. Not bad, not bad. It's definitely a usable zoom, actually, if you're at a soccer game or something like that. Let's go back to that little bokeh test with the leaf here. That's definitely not too bad. Like I said, the stabilization has always been just a little bit jerky, in my opinion, if you're doing any kind of panning with a Pixel camera. But let me know how this looks to you. And is this, like as Google, I think, was saying, the best video quality on any smartphone? I don't know. Now, the display of this phone is upgraded this year, now going up to 3000 nits peak brightness, so it's easy enough to see in bright daylight, but because you don't have an anti-glare display, as you see on like the Galaxy S25 Ultra, for example, it's not the easiest to read outside in bright daylight. As far as features go, Google added a ton of features on here. In no particular order, I used pretty much all of these I like, but I have some thoughts about them. The first one being natural language editing for the photos. So if you're in the Google Photos app, this is very, very impressive in my opinion. It's not overly AI looking, which I think is good. I thought it would just recreate the image and like mess everything up, but it can add or remove or change basically anything in the photo. It's not perfect. Like I found that it struggled. For example, I said darken the shadows on my face. And it kind of just made my whole face look more flat. Like, it didn't actually add more contrast. It was very successful in like changing the white balance though. It's able to do a lot on here, and I even had it add lipstick, which I don't know why I thought to do that, but I just wanted to see if it could adjust like a single feature on my face, and it was really successful in doing that as well. So clearly this is using a lot of generative AI though, and they make it look very natural at the same time. So props to Google for setting that up. Also, if you're worried about photos like not being real, if you're like, oh, how do you know it's a real photo anymore? In the metadata, Google now has that where it'll say this was captured by a Pixel camera, or this was, captured by a camera and then edited using, AI features, or this is generative AI. Like, they really have more metadata to differentiate that, which I think is quite nice. Another feature they have, okay, I guess we're going from a good feature to a useless one in my opinion. This is called Daily Hub. It feels identical and equally as useless as the Samsung Daily Brief feature. To access this, all you do is swipe from the home screen to the left, and that's like your normal Google, like a bunch of news stories, which admittedly I do kind of read those a lot. But if you tap on Daily Hub on the top left, it tells you like the weather and tells you what's on your calendar today. That's kind of the only useful thing, and then a couple of random YouTube videos and stuff like that on the bottom. Pixel Journal is an app that I think is really quite useful. You can require screen lock if you want it to be a little more protected, but it has access to your photos and your exercise each day, and it's pretty cool because you have a digital copy of a journal. It's always with you, so you can always record. It's searchable as well, and obviously more durable than a paper notebook because it's linked to your Google account. So even if you switch phones, you'll still have your journal. I think that it's not for me though. Like, I would rather, I'm not a big journaler, but if I was, I think there's something therapeutic about using like handwritten, like, on an actual physical journal, getting away from a screen and getting away from AI. But at the same time, like, it's cool that you have it in one spot. The insights could be cool as well. So you can see like a calendar. It'll show you, it just gives you an emoji based on every day when it reads your journal and kind of interprets that. So you could say, oh, I was feeling really good that day, I was not feeling good that day, and try to kind of draw some insights from your past journal entries. Magic Q is probably the biggest one on this phone. Admittedly, I probably don't have any B-roll for it by the time I show you this video, but it's essentially going to be like when you're typing up messages or in phone calls, it'll just like pull information from kind of everywhere on your phone. So if somebody sends you a link to a restaurant, or if you booked a restaurant or like for dinner, and then somebody says what time's the dinner, you can like send them the whole card for it. In phone calls, like pretty much anything you're doing, it's going to have information really mostly about like scheduling and stuff like that, that it'll just suggest above the keyboard, and you can add that in. The Pixel Screenshots app, I know it's been around for a little while, but I still love this feature on a Pixel phone. Searchable screenshots, like, you do have to give Google a lot of permissions to look through a lot of stuff to use this, but for example, if I just type in like, how high were the waves during Hurricane Aaron? I took a screenshot at the time because I thought it was so cool. It was like 12-foot waves in New Jersey. And like, yeah, you could see it very successfully found the relevant screenshot I was looking for. The recording app also got an upgrade. Of course, we already had like the different speakers. That was an option, but now you can also create music out of recordings. It's not as good as I hoped. I really hoped to be able to like find a beat. Like, you could have, something kind of like make your own beat and then have AI create music around it. That's not really what it turned out to be. It was more like it just listens to your recording and then puts some AI generated music behind that. So if you want like a speech to sound a little more intense, or I don't even know why you'd use this. It exists. Leave a comment if you guys know what to do with this. Now, if you're gonna make a drinking game out of the Pixel launch event, you would definitely not wanna look for the word Gemini, because they say that absolutely all the time. It's like the big thing Google's pushing, obviously, but I have to say, it is pretty neat that Gemini Live is treated as a phone call here rather than just like a separate app. So you can go through different apps, it can see what's on your screen, you can ask it for tips on how to do certain things, and it's kind of like a real assistant that's definitely getting smarter, pretty much constantly. And speaking of phone calls, there's a lot there in terms of phone calls, not just in terms of Magic Q, but a lot of other things like leave a message and other features that I can talk about in another video. The point is, Google is my favorite phone when it comes to the phone app, which is kind of overlooked by a lot of phone companies out there. Like, you've got, of course, Hold for Me and all the classic things, but they're always adding new features in here that just make phone calls better and more useful and, I don't know, easier when you're like on a hold or you're trying to navigate through, like, press 1 for this. Like, it just all pops up and you can do all of that, navigating your call quite easily. Inside the phone, we have the Tensor G5 processor. It's okay. It's not the fastest. It's definitely fast enough in my opinion, but sometimes if you're opening apps, it takes a beat to open them. You do get ultra-fast storage 4.0 if you get the 256 gigabyte version. The base model, I don't believe has that, and it's only 128 gigs of storage. Those are the only two options, at least here in the US. On the display, or I know I talked about the display a little bit, but under the display, you have the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. It's fast, it's smooth, it works well. If your hand's wet, it still works quite reliably for me. And if it ever doesn't, you also have Face Unlock here. It is just using the camera, so it's not as secure as something like Face ID on the iPhone, but it should be more secure than it used to be several years ago, using, obviously some new AI on there. The battery is 4,970 milliamp hours. I don't know why they didn't just go for 5,000, but they claim to have 30 hours of battery life on here. Because I've only used this for about a week now, and some of it was like installing new apps, and I don't know. I don't have real numbers to you guys yet. I'm working on that, like a long-term battery test with this. And if you guys want to see that, follow me on Instagram or TikTok. It's at Mike O'Brien with 2 N's, because Mike O'Brien's a really common name, and with 1 N was already taken. So Mike O'Brien, 2 N's, and I'll have a video for the battery life on that soon. But the thing with Pixels is the battery life is always really impressive in my opinion in terms of standby battery. So if you don't use your phone, you just set it down for an entire weekend, I'll come back and it like really didn't lose a lot of battery life at all in the time I was gone. Obviously, as long as always on display is not on. The complaints with this phone. I always hate Google Photos. I hate the app that is Google Photos. And I mean, it's nice that they added the editor in there. There's a lot of cool features in there. But the one thing that bothers me so much is that it always prompts you to upgrade and back up your photos. Like it always wants you to do that. And like, I don't want to do that. I want to save my photos. I want to like transfer them to a physical hard drive, and I want to have my photos like that. But Google obviously wants to store it in Google Photos for you. And I just know they make it almost impossible to download your photos. Like my wife has done that for like 10 years now, and you can never get all your photos off there. You have to go like one at a time. It's such a headache. So it's annoying that pop-up always comes up when I'm using the Google Photos app. I don't know, maybe that's a me thing. I'm getting on a tangent. You guys are gonna be like, Mike, calm down. It's not a big deal. Anyway, there's no physical SIM. That's a drawback. Maybe for me, again, more so as a phone reviewer, like I always wanna switch my SIMs, but I know a lot of people out there are gonna have, it's just an extra barrier. Like anyone who's not real tech savvy, maybe you're buying this for your parents, and they're like, oh, I have this SIM, like how do I switch to the new phone? It could be a barrier for them. There's no anti-reflective display. The tech's been around, especially from Samsung, for a couple of years now. I think it'd be nice to have it on here. It's not the flagship model from Google, so we'll give them a pass on that. But otherwise, camera coach, not a drawback, but just feels like a gimmick to me, trying to tell you how to orient your camera to take a photo. But I think that's kind of the last main drawback I have here. The bezels are not the thinnest around this phone if you look at them, but they're symmetric and the phone looks pretty good overall. The things I like, I mean, there's a lot to love about this phone. 7 years of updates, so you can use this phone like well into 2032 and still have the latest software as long as the Tensor G5 keeps up with that. I also appreciate that the metadata is telling you which photos are AI generated or AI edited versus just captured with the camera. And I know it's kind of a blurry line with like, computational photography, AI, where does it actually separate? But it's nice that Google's trying to kind of show that in the metadata. And this feels like a proper Pixel device. Like the ethos of Pixel has always been to make a solid but simple hardware product with exceptional software that demonstrates the best of what Google is able to do. And if you think about it, hardware is among the best, like solid camera bar, no wobble, looks and feels like a flagship phone, and at a more affordable price than a lot of other flagship phones. The software, it's clean, it's simple, yet it's full of features in a very Pixel way where like you have to look for the features, but they're all there when you need them. It never feels cluttery, in my opinion. And the AI features, absolutely bursting at the seams here. Like a lot of them just hidden, which I think is the best kind of AI feature. It's not going to be like AI this, AI this. It's all like, the Pixel Screenshots app. Yeah, it's using a lot of AI, but it's kind of just a nice feature that's on your phone. So that's my review of the Google Pixel 10. At least at launch. Google Pixels are probably some of the only phones that actually improve with age as more features roll out, but leave a comment and let me know what you think about this phone. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Mike O'Brien, and I'll see you in the next video.